4 years ago, the United States Air Force counted 50,000 African American pilots and personnel, about 15% of the total number of Air Force members. Those 50,000 can thank the Tuskegee Airmen for making that possible. Today, February 13, 2024, Lyles Station Historic School and Museum salutes the Tuskegee Airmen who combated racial opposition and Nazis. The Tuskegee Airmen comprised the first African American military aviators in the United States Army Air Corps. The Air Force wasn't officially established until 1947. For almost 100 years, the military had discriminated against African Americans, enforcing segregation and limiting military advancement. While the United States had not officially entered World War II in 1938, the military anticipated our involvement and the need for pilots. The Army Air Corps prepared by training pilots at white colleges, but not black. This changed due to Eleanor Roosevelt pressuring her husband, Franklin Roosevelt, to establish a military training program for African Americans. This unit, the 99th Pursuit Squadron, later known as the 99th Fighter Squadron, began training at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama in 1941 in what was known as the Tuskegee Experiment, a controversial program at the time. 6 months later, bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, and the U.S. was at war. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt lent her support to the men of the 99th when she visited the Tuskegee Institute and, though her security detail warned her against it, flew over Alabama for 40 minutes in a biplane piloted by Charles Anderson, the principal flight instructor at Tuskegee. The program was initially designed to test the ability of the black pilots who were expected by military leaders to fail. These pilots, however, planned for success and achieved it. 12 college-educated young men took part in the first aviation class at Tuskegee. One of them, Student Officer Captain Benjamin Davis, Jr., the first black general in the U.S. Air Force. That class of 12 aviators grew to almost 1,000 pilots, approximately 450 deployed overseas. Of those, 66 were killed in action or in aviation accidents, with 32 captured and held as prisoners of war by the Nazis. Pilots weren't the only ones in the program. Tuskegee also trained 14,000 support personnel whose duties ranged from navigators to medics to radio operators and mechanics and other individuals necessary for keeping the planes and crew in fighting shape. Despite their important role in the U.S. Army Air Corps, they suffered discrimination both on the base and in the community, denied access to some parts of the base, and in nearby towns where business owners denied them service. Tuskegee Airmen took part in over 15,500 combat sorties during almost 1,600 missions, with 53 of the men destroying an impressive 112 German aircraft in flight. Together with the other relentless Tuskegee flyers, they took out other vehicles on the ground, destroying 150 planes on the ground and almost 1,000 train cars, trucks, and other Nazi vehicles. Cartoons depicting Snoopy and the Red Baron aside, bomber pilots flying on long-range raids across Nazi territory were targets of the Luftwaffe, making it one of the most dangerous jobs encompassed by the military in World War II. Over half the fighter crews on those early missions over Nazi-controlled Europe never made it home. These huge bomber planes made easy targets in the sky and relied on fighter escorts to protect them in the air. They also protected the Allied ships serving in the Mediterranean and North America. The Tuskegee Airmen were the best protection they could ask for, and most did ask for them. In 1944, the airmen received new P-51 Mustangs, which could fly faster and farther than their previous planes. They were readily recognized by the bright red tail section, prompting the nickname of Red Tails for the planes and Red-Tailed Angels for the airmen. The Luftwaffe referred to them as Der Schwarzvogelmenschen, literally the Black Birdmen. These Red Tails were one of the best fighter planes of World War II, flown by the Tuskegee Airmen. With a range of up to 1,000 miles, they could outfly any Luftwaffe fighters, and they did. The Tuskegee Airmen not only accumulated a record number of enemy airplanes taken out, but also received over 850 awards during the war, 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 8 Purple Hearts, 1 Silver Star, and 744 Air Medals. One would think that with this impressive record, that the men would have been greeted as heroes when they returned to the States. Sadly, Tuskegee pilot Lieutenant Colonel Lee Archer remembers walking down the gangplank only to see the first welcome sign reading, "Colored troops to the right, white troops to the left." While they had won the war against the Nazis, they still had to fight the war against racism at home, and they did. These men paved the way for racial equality in the military and led to President Truman's executive order banning racial discrimination in the military.